The penultimate episode of The Last of Us Season 2 was a flashback episode that focused on the relationship between Ellie and Joel, and I actually thought it was a really damn good one. Yes, while I have had mixed feelings about Season 2 overall, the penultimate episode was able to provide the season with something that has been desperately missing, some interesting character dynamics. The relationship between Ellie and Joel is a complicated yet fascinating one, and while there are other good characters featured in this series, none of them have the same kind of interesting or special connection to Ellie that Joel does. So I really enjoyed watching their relationship develop and even devolve a bit in this episode, because their relationship immediately following the events of the Season 1 finale actually turned out to be pretty okay. Joel gifts Ellie a homemade guitar for her 15th birthday, and then takes her to an awesome abandoned museum on her 16th birthday. And both of these scenes were absolutely beautiful, because they showed us how happy these two characters really were. Little did they know that this was probably the happiest time that they were ever going to have. Because, as is the case with any relationship, everything starts becoming a little more difficult once Ellie starts getting older. Case in point, Joel angrily interrupts a moment of intimacy between Ellie and another girl on her 17th birthday, which causes some tension between the two. Thankfully, the argument does end in a surprisingly mature way, as Joel respects Ellie's wish to have her own space and allows her to move into the garage. So even though Joel is clearly unhappy with Ellie's behavior here, it's nice to see that he has shown some signs of growth. Unfortunately, he is still the same old Joel, and the rash decisions that he makes all in the name of love leads to even more friction between him and Ellie. Because as we see on her 19th birthday, Joel takes Ellie out on her first patrol, where they encounter Gail's husband Eugene, who has been bitten. So we finally get to see exactly what happened with Joel and Eugene here. As it turns out, with time to spare before turning, Eugene begs Joel to let him see his wife one last time, and Ellie agrees to let him do it. So Joel promises Ellie that he will lead Eugene back to Jackson to say goodbye to Gail, but he instead leads Eugene away from the town and executes him. Once they return home, Joel lies to Gail by telling her that Eugene was brave and that he ultimately chose to kill himself rather than to endanger her. Ellie, seeing how effortlessly Joel can distort the truth in order to comfort someone, realizes that he also lied about what happened to the Fireflies. Angry, she reveals what actually happened to Gail, which is why those two characters have some friction in the first two episodes, and why Ellie was acting so cold towards him as well. But we also learned that after the New Year's Eve dance, Ellie did confront Joel about his actions at the hospital. And for the very first time, he tearfully confesses everything that he did. But he also admits that he has no regrets about his decisions. And as much as I don't agree with the actions that Joel took, I have to admit that it must have taken some guts to tell the truth here. This must have been an incredibly hard conversation to have, one that I'm sure plenty of other people would have tried to avoid having altogether, especially his own father, who we do actually get to see in this episode. And in that flashback sequence, we learn that Joel has always been something of a protector, going so far as to lie to his own father just so his little brother wouldn't have to get an ass whooping. Now, I definitely do commend Joel for being a protective older brother, but it's a shame that this lifestyle wasn't healthy for his development as an adult. And now he has to give Ellie the same speech that his own father once gave to him. After hearing him out, she tells Joel that she doesn't think she can forgive him for what he did, but that she would like to try. And those are the last words that the two characters ever spoke to each other, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And it'll probably reinforce the idea to some viewers that Ellie's revenge quest against Abby is 100% justified. So while I did enjoy this flashback episode in and of itself, I'm not sure how I feel about how these flashbacks affect the structure of the story. That final moment between Ellie and Joel, for example, takes place at the end of the entire game, after Ellie's revenge quest is officially over. So by changing the placement of the scene, the showrunners have also changed our perception of Ellie's mental state as she reflects upon the moment. Instead of acting as a somber moment that reminds Ellie of why she did everything that she did, it now acts as justification for why she's going to do what she's about to do. Those are two totally different things. And considering what's probably going to happen in the next episode, the scene will probably make the TV audience feel like Ellie's actions are justified, despite the fact that she's definitely going to be crossing a line. Speaking of which, how does the TV audience feel about Abby being gone for so long? She showed up in episode 1, dropped a huge bomb in episode 2, and has been absent for the rest of the season. And based on the structure of the video game, I'd be willing to bet that she'll only appear in the last scene of the finale, which means that this season is probably going to end on a massive cliffhanger. So I don't think many fans are going to be satisfied with the finale, myself included. And I'm someone who thinks that the huge story of the video game definitely needed to be split up into multiple seasons. I just think that this season, so far, has failed to tell its own satisfying narrative arc. That being said, I did like how this episode specifically did provide the rest of the season with some interesting context. It'll just be interesting to see if that context will allow the season to reach a satisfying conclusion. And it'll also be interesting to see how this episode will affect the future seasons, since it basically used all of Joel's flashbacks from the video game. Joel's presence and Pedro Pascal's performance were sorely missing from this season, and they both definitely helped me enjoy this episode more than the previous few episodes, so I'm curious to see how the rest of the series will feel without them, or how TV viewers will feel about watching the rest of the series without them. Either way, I'm glad that this episode did manage to feel better and more important than the previous few episodes in the season. I'm just worried about how everything after this episode is going to be. But I guess we'll see how the season 2 finale will actually turn out to be once it gets released on Sunday.